Grimm Show presents The Covers Face Off.
Who did it first? Who did it best? Which version is superior?
The Covers Face Off. Face Off. Face Off.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Covers Face Off on the Scratch a Track podcast, presented by the Dude and Grimm Show. I am the Dude.
I'm Grimm.
He is Grimm. He's Grimm. How was your weekend, Grimm?
It was pretty good. Nice holiday weekend. Did some traveling.
Ooh, that's nice.
You know, hopefully avoided the plague. And how about you, dude?
It was. I had a weekend, but we won't get quite into that.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
Yeah. Have you ever been to no, so yes, today we have another episode. Well, you know, hopefully nobody out there has a case of the Mondays, but if you do, that's why you're probably watching, because this is going to lift your spirits. Why don't you tell the fine folks out there what song we're going to be talking about, and the artists by whom. Sorry. Gosh, I never know which one is right.
well, duder, we're talking about the song "Dancing in the Street." It's been covered by a lot of people. The original version being by Martha and the Vandellas, and we're going to look at the cover by David Bowie and Mick Jagger for several interesting reasons. Not that any of the other covers per se, like the Mamas and Papas cover or the Grateful Dead cover, aren't worth mentioning, but there's some interesting kind of history that goes with the Bowie and Jagger cover, and it is certainly very much in its time period, much like the Martha and the Vandellas version is within its time period.
Yeah, that's what I kind of saw just on the initial listening of it. I'll fully admit, I was more familiar with Martha in the Vandellas.
Oh, me too. Me too. I remember the video for some reason. I remember the video of from being a kid of Jagger and Bowie, and it like everything about it is just like 80s. And then upon reading about it a little bit, of course, it came out in 85, and you're like, yeah, like right smack dab in the middle. Like it
pretty much makes sense.
Yeah. The clothes they are wearing are just incredible in the video. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess they recorded it. I mean, maybe just talking a little bit about their version. They recorded it as like a, to raise money for Live Aid, and which was the Live Aid famine relief cause. So that's kind of was their inspiration for, hey, let's put this song together and let's do it. Yeah. And originally, apparently, they were going to perform the song. Did you see that?
Yes, and that's why I thought it was even better that we're talking about this version, because like that concept is amazing. So they were going to record it live in two separate venues at Live Aid at the same time until they realized there was a goddamn half second of delay in the satellite, and you couldn't account for that.
Well, I mean, dude, think about just what we deal with on FaceTime while we're kind of doing this, and just the slight delay that we have. I couldn't imagine, even if you have a full like satellite link up, I couldn't imagine two artists being on stage in front of all these people being like, well, I really hope this works.
Yeah. And then with backing bands and like, you know, the whole thing seems like it would have been a huge mess, but probably like, you know, like watching a train just smash into something. Like it'd be interesting to watch, but sad at the same time. So they didn't do it that way.
Probably in slow motion too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I guess Bowie was going to record it, or he was going to perform his at Wembley Stadium. Yep. And then Jagger, they said, was at John F. Kennedy Stadium, which I guess is in Philadelphia.
Because that was the two venues.
Yeah. So I think it's probably good that they didn't do that. And so they just went into the studio and they recorded it and everything. But let's take a step back and let's go back to the Martha and the Vandellas. You know, I was familiar kind of with Martha and the Vandellas from my favorite song of theirs is Nowhere to Run. That's the one.
Great song.
It's phenomenal, and it's from for me, it came out in the movie Good Morning Vietnam.
Yep.
And it's on the
with
Good
the
Morning
helicopters
Vietnam soundtrack. Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's a Vietnam movie. What's a Vietnam movie without helicopters? So.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, there were no helicopters were harmed in the filming of this movie. Yes. So that's what kind of got me into, I think, Martha in the Vandellas, and then got me into a little Motown. So I think I downloaded, on Apple or iTunes or whatever, like one of that, like an 80s mix. And I think this song was included in it as well. So that's, I think, how I kind of initially first heard this song.
You mean a 60s mix?
A 60s mix, a Motown mix.
Yeah, well, you said 80s, and I was like, well,
oh, did I say 80s? Okay.
Yeah.
I meant Motown mix.
Yeah. Well, and it has that absolutely characteristic Motown sound. I mean, it's a real big, full sound behind them. And a lot of the instrumentation, there were several groups depending on where you were in the country and what record company you were working with. But Motown had a core group of musicians that were like their studio musicians called the Funk Brothers. And so they were the guys who laid down like the real nuts and bolts of this track, with, of course, other things too. But there's a great documentary about the Funk Brothers out there to watch if one would be so inclined. But it's very good, and it's interesting because it was like this awesome gig for these guys. I mean, they're the guys on all those Motown tracks. They're playing on them, right? But then Barry Gordy gets a wild hair up his ass and decides to move Motown to LA and leave Detroit, and like it's like you either went with him or you didn't, and you had nothing. And a lot of these guys stayed behind and just kind of like became poor and were kind of just regular guys. Damn. But they were in a way like some of the most essential people in rock and roll that nobody knew about.
That's really interesting, man. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Well, so I guess this song, and we've done an album on Marvin Gaye and what's going on, but the song was written partially by Marvin Gaye, Mickey Stevenson, and then Ivy Jo Hunter, and then obviously recorded by Martha and the Vandellas. But I found that really interesting because we have talked a lot about obviously the What's Going On podcast that we did. So if you haven't seen that, scroll down, check it out. It's pretty good. But,
go ahead and do a like and a thumbs up on that.
Yeah. But so during that, I think we kind of delved into definitely Barry Gordy and who he was. And, this song came out and it was a hit, but then it had almost like, I don't know if I'd say a second life, but later it started, it became a political kind of civil, I guess they called it like a civil rights anthem, where people thought it, or I think even a reporter asked Martha Reeves if she was like a militant leader and if dancing in the street was really like a call to riot. And she was like, no, it was just, part of the song. Like it was a party song.
I know, but I think that's interesting how it took on that meaning. And then again, we're talking about this now in a time where this is a very relevant topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it is. And the funny thing about, we talked about Barry Gordy on our episode with What's Going On. He was, the head of Motown Records, and he didn't want Motown Records to be affiliated with any sort of political statement or stance or anything like that. He didn't want it to affect the record label. And because if you remember when Marvin Gaye was like, hey, I'm going to make, I guess, somewhat of a political album, he was like against it until he heard, I think, What's Going On. He was like, okay, here's money, record it within this time and you can do whatever you want.
But, the thing is, I guess when you think about even in the music industry at that time, how prevalent racism was, I guess in a way you can understand his position, because it's like it's like you can screw yourself out of everything if you go too far. And so I guess for that reason, I get where he was coming from, although it sucks that he had to come from there, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, apparently, and I don't have this fully right in front of me, but I think he actually did have another record label that he did own that would take a little more of a political angle, where he wasn't as, I guess, afraid to have some more, I guess you could say, rebellious type music and
I didn't know that
and whatnot. So I think he kind of wanted to keep Motown is
like
I guess what I would say. Yeah, is clean as possible. So
yeah,
I just found that interesting. He's a person who
really is.
who definitely comes up a lot. I mean, Motown Records was like the big label for obviously for Motown, and he was the head of it. So
yeah,
I just I thought it was interesting that he kind of came up again, and we're dealing with another song that kind of had that. But even some radio stations, as soon as there was this rumor that it might have some sort of political civil rights undertones, they stopped playing it. They pulled it up from the rotation. So
now one thing I found interesting is too, when it talked about the three guys who wrote this song, and actually, their inspiration or whatever for writing it is very very innocent, and it's just like, it's hot out in the summer, and it's like somebody would bust open a fire hydrant and people would just kind of run around in the water to cool off. I mean, like,
No, they're playing. Yeah, no, they're playing they are like dancing in the street, but it's kind of like a party or a block party. And in the movie, like in the movie, Do the Right Thing. That's one of like the big scenes that you see kind of in the movie. They open up the fire hydrant and everybody's just running around and dancing and just like having a good time.
And it's hot. I mean, what else is everyone going to do, right? And I found that. I found that really interesting, that kind of was the initial inspiration. And then they really mention a lot of cities like this is going on around the country, which I think would also lead to the whole like civil rights aspect, because as these marches are now and then, we're going on all around the country. And they throw that last shout out to Detroit in the end where they say, can't forget the Motor City, Yeah,
Motor City.
Which I think that was a big influence for the More song, the car shout out, in which they go into the city shout out section. But we'll have to catch up with them to see if that was the case or not.
It could have been. I wouldn't be surprised though. So then, like you said, there, plenty of people have covered it over the years, but then, Bowie and Mick Jagger, I mean, geez, you think about two just iconic artists and musicians coming together in 1985 to record a duet. They did put out this cover of it. It reached number one. It was a huge hit. And like you talked about, the music video is very, very 80s, but it is very 80s. And although the songs are different, I still feel like there's a lot of similarities. Like there is. The saxophone part and the background vocals are very prevalent in both songs. So I feel like they kind of kept some of those, I guess, I don't have to say themes, but the instrumentation maybe a little bit similar. So
and I do really that whole bit about trying to record it at Live Aid is really something else. That's like an interesting concept that I think now you might be able to pull off. Maybe
It'd be tough.
I don't know.
Well, so they did record the song in the in the studio. I guess Bowie was in the studio. He was recording. I think they said he was recording for the Absolute Beginners soundtrack, and so Mick Jagger flew in to meet him, and I think they said they came up with a rough mix in maybe 4 hours, and in 13 hours, I think they'd started the recording and they'd started and completed most of the song and the video
and the music video. I know that like, tripped me out to read that. They're like they just went ahead and did the whole thing, and then
Now, Grim, I will say this. Check this out, my friend. So they actually did play this song live together. Did you know that?
No.
Well, and you want to know when they did it?
Huh.
Dude, They did it on your 5th birthday, my friend, at Prince's Trust concert, June 20th, 1986, dude. So happy birthday, Grimm. The only time they ever performed this song live, and they did it for you. You didn't even know it.
I felt something that day, something very special, and I know why now.
Very special. Now you know.
In pleated pants and everything.
Oh man, it must have been pretty epic. I think we've talked about both songs a little bit. Is there one you kind of lean to a little bit, or the one that you really prefer?
I mean, to me, you could never. I mean, the Martha and the Vandellas original version is just. How could you ever touch that?
Yeah, no, I'm all about that one as well. I think that definitely takes the cake. And not to say that, I mean, it's hard to go against anything really Bowie or Mick Jagger has done. And
and not to go against it. It's just it doesn't have the same. It just doesn't have the same feel, you know.
Sure. Well,
it's almost like it's like the production is almost too well done,
too good.
You know.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about Motown music too. Is it's good, but there's this quality to it, and
it's still real.
Very similar to even like Bob Marley when he was recording down in Jamaica. Like there's a certain quality that it has and that it carries. So I dig it for sure. I dig it.
So with that,
let's go dancing in the street, bro.
Yeah, and it was hot today, so I'm ready to do it.
Damn, it is hot. I should turn my AC on now, actually, but we can't because we're recording. So, but anyways, that wraps up another awesome episode of the Covers Face Off, and we got a couple more Covers Face Offs coming up, but we also got some things up our sleeve. So keep listening.
Some new shit has come to light,
dude. Some mind blowing concepts.
Yeah,
this is our concern, dude.
So stay tuned.
Take care. Subscribe.
Phone's ringing, dude.
Oh, phone's ringing. All right. Peace.
The Covers Face Off is produced by the Dude Grimm. Additional music provided by More. That's ... MORE and the Tims TIMNZ. Copyright 2020. The Dude and Grimm Show.